Today I'm going to be replacing the front wheel hub assembly on the passenger side of this 2003 Ford Explorer two-wheel drive. The new hub assembly comes with all the lugs already in it, and it also has the ABS sensor already installed on it, and it has a plug up in the car to plug it out. So I'm going to start off with that and show you where that is. On the upper part of the fender well, up under the hood, this is the connection for the ABS sensor. So before I do anything else, I'm going to go ahead and disconnect it. It's got a little tab you push in. With some wiggling, you can get it out. And it'll pull on out. This end of it goes down to the wheel hub. So now you already got that loose before you even start on anything else. Next, you want to go ahead and lift the front of the car up. Put you some jack stands on it. Go ahead and get that wheel off. Alright, now that I have the wheel off, go ahead and take this ABS sensor wire loose. You can see up here is where we took it loose from the top of the fender well. Now we just gotta fish it down in all the little clamps that snapped in two, and finish taking it loose and just lay it to the side. Now what I'm going to do is turn the wheel all the way to the left. Since we're working on this right side, I'm going to turn the wheel all the way to the left. That way it opens up the back side of this caliper more to make it easier to access. Alright, so you have the caliper. The caliper is mounted to the caliper bracket. It has the slide pins right here. Instead of removing the caliper and setting it to the side, then removing the caliper bracket, I'm just going to remove the two bolts out of the back of the caliper bracket, and all this will come off as one piece. Once it's off as one piece, I'll take a piece of rope or bungee cord or something and tie it up somewhere up here to hold it in place to keep it from hanging on the brake line. The two bolts, if you get back here, there's one right there and then one down here. I believe they are 18 millimeters. A long cheater bar like this can help you out a lot of times breaking them bolts loose. If your brake pads fall out after you take the caliper and the bracket off, just set them to the side and reinstall them after you're done with everything else. After you got the brake caliper and the bracket off, the rotor will just slide right off the lugs. And there's the hub assembly right there. It's that new part that we got. So what I'm going to do first is in there where you can see the bolts, it has 3 bolts to hold them in. There's one on the other side. I'm going to spray them down real good with some penetrating oil and let them soak overnight to help see if that'll make it a little bit easier getting them broke loose. One thing I want to point out too, you want to notice where the wire comes out for that ABS sensor and where it's correlated at on the spindle. And you want to make sure when you put the new one back, you put the wire in the same exact place. You see it fits right through that little slot. So just make a mental note of that. Once you get them 3 bolts out, it's going to take some hammering and some prying to get the hub assembly to come loose from the spindle. As you can see right there, from the factory they use some sort of sealant when they bolt it up. I'm reckon it's to help keep down on vibration and corrosion is my guess. but it's glued on there also, so just keep that in mind too. One thing I want to add is this is a two-wheel drive Ford Explorer. If it was four-wheel drive, it would have had a CV axle spline that would have went in here, and right here there would have been a nut you would have had to remove. You would just remove that nut in the first place before you start taking the hub off, and the hub assembly would just slide out from it. If you do have a four-wheel drive one, me personally, I put a little bit of anti-seize in these splines before I installed it. That way, if you ever had to change it again, the CV axle wouldn't be bound up in there with rust. Alright, now that the old hub assembly's off, you want to clean up this surface that it mounts up to. This surface right here and this chamfer in here. If you have any kind of debris or anything on that surface when you put the new one on, it will slightly make it off level, so the wheel won't be truly straight. What I'm going to be using, I'm going to use a scraper like this to get all the big chunks off, and then I got a wire wheel on the air Dremel tool to polish this up real good. Alright, now that I got that surface cleaned up real good, I'm going to take some brake clean all this up real good, wipe it down, and before I install my new hub assembly, I'm going to put a thin coat of anti-seize on this mating surface. That way if I ever have to go in here and do this again, maybe it won't be so hard to get it back off. Also, take your finger and feel around in here and on the surface, see if you feel any metal burrs that are sticking out. If you feel any burrs, get you a round file like this. You see where one side's rounded, and just knock down that burr in there. It don't take but just a little bit, and just spread it on out. Most any new hub you buy, it's going to come with a set of new bolts for it. In this case with mine, it looks like it came with the two caliper bracket bolts also. I got a total of 5 bolts in there. If you look at them, they've already got thread lock on it, Loctite on it. So there's no need to add any. If in case you're replacing yours and they didn't come with new bolts, or the bolts don't have any Loctite on it, you want to make sure you put some Loctite on them before you install them. Last thing you want to happen is that wheel come off going down the road. Now at this point, it's basically doing the exact opposite of what you just did. When you put it in there, you want to make sure it fits in there flush. You want to make sure you got it in the correct position where this wire runs through here. This one's got this wire loom on it. I may cut it just a little bit shorter, that way the wire fits in that crest, or I may see if I can try to force it in there, that way it'll be out of the way. But you just want to look around it, make sure everything sits up nice, and start your bolts through the back. You want to gradually tighten them up and go around. You don't just want to tighten one up really tight and then go to the next. You want to kind of snug them up. You want to bring out your good old trusty torque wrench. The torque specs for both the hub bolts and the caliper bracket bolts are 83 foot-pounds. So I got it set at 83 foot-pounds, and we'll finish tightening it up. When you hear it click, then you know you're good. Now I'm just going to go around one more time to double check. On doing things like this, I highly recommend using a torque wrench to make sure you got them tightened down right. Because if they ain't tightened down good, and you get going down the road and vibrations start making them come loose, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. For the time being, I'm just going to take these wires. They still got a tie wrap on them. I'm just going to set them back here out of the way while I mount the caliper bracket back up. Make sure the wire's in the correct place and out of the way. What I'm also going to do, this is just my preference, I'm going to put just a little bit of anti-seize on this surface right here and just spread it real thin around it. That way the brake rotor don't seize to this, so if I go to do a brake job and change the brake rotors, I don't have to hammer that thing off so hard. Now it's time to put the brake rotor back on. At this point, if you've gotten any grease or anything on the rotor surface, I'll go ahead and clean that off with some brake clean. Just slides right back on there. When you put the brake caliper bracket and the brake caliper back on, it'll hold it in place. What actually holds it in tight is when you put the lug nuts on, when you put the wheel on, and that holds it all together. Now you want to run your ABS wire where you want it. Put it in the little holders going up the brake line. Now you want to run your ABS wire where you want it. Put it in the little holders going up the brake line. And then just feed it up through here, up to the top of the fender weld, and reconnect it where it was on the top of the fender weld up under the hood. You want to connect that connector up here on top of the fender weld. Push it till it clicks. Make sure it's tight. Before you put the wheel back on, just look over everything, make sure you got everything connected right. Ain't nothing hanging. All the bolts are in place. Everything's put back together. And make sure you put them brake pads back in there. If they fell out, that could be one thing you could forget. Now all there's to do is put the wheel back on and take it for a test drive. One thing I noticed while taking it out for a test drive, as soon as I cranked the car up, the ABS light came on the dash. But as soon as I started going down the road, I pulled out a driveway. As soon as I got it up to about 20 miles an hour, the light went out. And so far it's staying out. As you saw, changing out that front hub assembly on that 2003 Ford Explorer wasn't too bad of a job. It's pretty straightforward. It does take a little muscle to break some of them bolts loose with the rust and the Loctite that's on the threads. Sometimes they can be kind of difficult to break loose, but that's when a big long cheater bar helps a great deal. So I hope you found this video helpful. If it helped you and you liked it, please remember to give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching.